What's going on, guys? EA released the top 20 left wingers and right wingers in NHL 24 today, so you know what that means. It's time for another ratings review. Make sure you watch the whole video because some of these ratings make absolutely no sense. Really curious what your guys' thoughts are on these. To actually see the entire top 20, you got to go on the website, which actually has all of their attributes as well. But I'm going to start by saying that the attributes are not accurate. I actually put out a tweet showing off some of the attributes that I found, like Brad Marchand being faster than Kyle Connor, Johnny Gaudreau and Alex Ovechkin having the same body checking stat. There's some other really weird things in here, so it's good to know that these are not accurate. I'm not sure what's going on. Probably some glitch with the website, which really sucks as I would like to have gone through them with you guys. Unfortunately, though, we just had to stick to overalls. Starting off here with Matthew Tkachuk, highest rated left winger in the game, 94 overall. I do think he deserves that rating. He was so good last year, especially in the playoffs. Definitely found another gear. I think, deserves to be the number one left winger, although he actually plays more right wing now, so really he should be a right winger, but if they do have him as a left winger, I think of all the players listed, he would be the best. You can see there he is the only one at 94 overall. Now behind him, number 2, we got Artemi Panarin, 93 overall. I think 93 is a bit high for Panarin. I personally would have him 92 max, probably a 91. I think when you look at the guys below him on this list, Robertson, Kaprizov, I would have them both above Panarin. So Panarin's for sure in the top 5. Personally, though, would not have him at the second spot. Number 3 now, Robertson. As I mentioned, he's probably my second highest left winger behind Tkachuk. I would actually probably make him a 93, and if you move Tkachuk to the right wing spot, Robertson's actually your number 1 left winger in the game at that point. I think, over 100 points last year, career season for him. He's such a good shooter. He's also a good passer, solid defensively. He's quick. He's pretty good size as well. Like, Robertson kind of does it all for you, so definitely deserving, I think, to be higher up on this list. Next up, guys, number 4, Kaprizov. I think 92 is actually probably the perfect rating for him. I didn't play a full season last year. Didn't go off in points as much as Robertson, but does have a bit better of a defensive game. Great skater, of course. Really good on his edges. Good shot, good playmaker as well. I think Kaprizov for sure a top 3 left winger. Now, number 5 here, we got Alex Ovechkin, 91 overall. I personally think that's a bit high on Ovechkin. I think he's kind of a one-trick pony at this point. Just has, that amazing one-timer on the power play in his office. I think for me, Ovechkin at this point should probably be like a high 80. Still has, the best shot in the league probably. There's a reason why I'll probably go down as the greatest NHL goal scorer of all time. The thing is, 91 for me, his skating's not that great anymore. He doesn't really play defense. He is still pretty physical. Doesn't really pass the puck much. So he's basically just really good shooter, decent physical. That's about it. I don't really see how he could be a 91. I think for me, somewhere between 87, maybe 88 makes more sense for Ovechkin. Now after him, you got Brad Marchand at 91. I did see a lot of people on Twitter saying this was too high or too low. Personally, I think 91's pretty good for Marchand. Maybe you could even make him a 92. I think, they're pretty accurate with that, of course. Very skilled player, even, as he's getting older, he's still playing really well. I think it'll be interesting to see on Boston this year. If he's playing away from Pasternak, no Bergeron, how's he going to do, carrying his own line? Will his production drop a bit, especially since he is, just 1 year older now? I'm curious to see if he can kind of keep up the elite level of play he's had. Number 7 here, Clayton Keller, finally getting some respect on his name, 89 overall. I think he's definitely deserving of that. The one bright spot on the Arizona Coyotes last season. This season, of course, I think Logan Cooley will be the second bright spot. If you guys saw that highlight reel goal he scored in the preseason game against the Kings, absolutely nasty. But Keller for sure definitely deserving of that 89. If he can pop off this year, I think he could be a 90 until 25. Number 8 here, Brady Tkachuk, also 89. I think he's deserving of that. Maybe a little bit high. Maybe have him like 88. The thing is, though, he's definitely more of a well-rounded player, say, than Keller, because he brings that physical game, which, of course, Keller doesn't have. I think playmaking goes to Keller. In terms of the shot, probably pretty equal. So, it's probably fine. Maybe slightly high. Johnny Gaudreau here, 89 overall. I think that's a pretty good rating for Gaudreau. Maybe even have him a 90. He still has some of the sickest hands, I think, in the league. One of the best playmakers, probably like top 5. I think what probably brings his rating down is the fact that he has no physical game at all. So kind of the opposite of Tkachuk there. So if you factor that in, 89 is probably a fine rating for him. And then number 10 here, you got Kyle Connor, also 89. I think, Connor slowed down a bit last year, but for me, he's still probably 90 overall. I think he's a better player than Tkachuk. I'd probably give a slight edge to him over Keller. Johnny Gaudreau, again, I said Gaudreau could be a 90. I think, both those guys could probably be pushing 90 overall. Connor probably top 5, if not at least a top 10 shooter in the game. So 89 definitely I think is like the minimum range should have. He's also one of the fastest skaters in the NHL. Now moving on here, guys, to number 11, you got Philip Forsberg, 88 overall. I think Philip Forsberg's a very good winger. Definitely gonna be like one of the only good forwards on that Predators offense this season. So curious to see how he's gonna do. But 88 I think is honestly like the perfect rating for him. Just for Brad as well, another Swede there, 88 overall. I think 88's probably perfect for just for Brad, I think. He's got a good offensive skill set to his game. I think they nailed him. Jake Gensel here, 88. I will say, I think Gensel probably could have been an 89. I think they're a little bit low on him. I think Jake Gensel's kind of just underrated due to the fact, he does play with Crosby. He gets kind of overshadowed by that superstar Malkin as well. So Gensel here with Carlson on the back end. could be looking at a career year, especially since I don't think he signed his contract yet. He's on the last year of his deal. He's going to be looking to, pop off this season and get paid. So expect a big season from him. Jonathan Huberdeau at 14. So this is definitely an interesting one. Obviously, Huberdeau was the best left winger in the world 2 years ago. Last season, he wasn't even a point per game. I think it was like his worst season of his career. So I think an 88 is pretty fair. Personally, when I look at ratings, I try to do like a 3-year system where you combine the last 3 years, with the most recent season being like the most heavily weighted, then 2 years ago, then 3 years ago, mattering the least, but still, taken into account. So with that all said, I think 88 is pretty fair for Huberdeau. Last year, he was like a 93 or 94, coming off, second in points behind McDavid, I think first in assists. So Huberdeau at 88 now. It's fair. I don't really see him doing worse than he did last year. Next up at number 15, Gabe Landeskog, also an 88. Obviously, staying out the entire year, but if he was healthy, being 88. And so far, it hasn't come out that his injury is career ending, so we can't really make him like a 70 LTIR player yet, at which point I think 88 is pretty fair for Landeskog. Maybe you have him 87, but, 87 to 88, right around the right spot. Next up is Jonathan Marchessault, who's a great American player. I don't know what's going on here. Him, Verhaeghe, Hyman don't have headshots. I assume it's a glitch. Same with Marchessault, Verhaeghe being American. Obviously, they are Canadian. Looking at Marchessault here, the current Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I think that's a pretty fair rating for him. Definitely showed up in the playoffs. I think very, very fair. Carter Verhaeghe as well, 87. Has played a lot better these last couple seasons with Florida. I think he deserves to be in the top 20 list, and I think 87 is fair as well. Zach Hyman, 87. Big year with the Oilers. Hard to argue against that. You could say, production McDavid, Draisaitl, but I wouldn't really make him any lower than 86. Kevin Fiala at 19. He's also an 87. I think he's a little bit too low rated there. I would personally have him as an 88. I think he's one of the better playmakers in the league, which is actually kind of funny because Fiala is a sniper. In my opinion, he's a playmaker. And then finally there, number 20, JT Miller. Probably should be a center, like Kachuk should be a right winger, but 87 overall there. I think, pretty fair for Miller. You expect him to be right around that rating. Also, you guys, before we get to right wingers, I'll show you the X factors here for each player. I feel like Matthew Kachuk here, is probably accurate, same with Panarin, but some of them I think are glitched. Like, I'm sure Robertson has more X factors than that. I'm sure Kaprizov has his own ability, but just going to go through here, giving you guys a look at what they might look like. Like, Marchand, again, probably has his own ability. Brady Kachuk, same thing. I feel like if they're top 10 in their position and they don't have his own ability, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Forsberg, for instance, one of the few players in the league who scored a Michigan goal. He should have skilled up. I can see Bratz there only having 3 for an 88. I think that makes a lot more sense. Huberdeau, playmaking stuff. Landeskog actually has quite a bit. Marchessault's there. Verhaeghe, Zach Hyman, of course, all out, battling out front of the net. Fiala there, and Miller. So, again, those could be accurate. They could not be, but just in case, I figured I'd show them to you guys. And now next year, guys, move on to the right wingers. At number 1, you got David Pastrnak, 95 overall, which honestly is pretty insane. I think Pastrnak, of course, had an amazing season last year. I wouldn't argue him being the number 1 right winger in the NHL, unless, of course, you actually had Matthew Kachuk at right wing. At that point, I think I would say they were tied, and that's because I think Pasternak's a little bit too high here. I personally would have him as a 94, tied with Kachuk, and also tied with Kucherov right behind him. I think Pastrnak is very good, but I think Kucherov being a 94 is pretty accurate. I think that's the right rating, and I would say, these two are pretty much even players. So, Pastrnak, again, I would have him at a 94, tied with Kucherov there. Kucherov at 2, I think, again, very fair rating. If you wanted to have him 1, Pastrnak 2, I would be fine with that as well. Rankin at 393 overall, I think is also a really good rating. One of the best snipers in the league. I think, kind of a guy people underrated for a little bit, but definitely starting to get his respect, especially like when there's injuries to McKinnon, Landeskog. He still performs. I think, he's shown why he's a top 5 right winger in the game, and actually in this case, top 3. Mitch Marner, number 4, 92 overall, I think is also very well deserved. Obviously, plays good defense. Probably the best defensive player of these top 4. Also, one of the best playmakers in the league. I think 92 would be hard to argue for Marner. Number 5 there, Mark Stone, 90 overall. Probably the best two-way winger in the NHL. So, good to see him getting some respect in that regard. I feel like should have some of the best defensive stats. I could show you guys, like it says there, 95 defensive awareness, but again, the attributes just don't make any sense. But you can see his X factors there also too. Right there, you can look at Marner's X factors. I think they're pretty much the same as NHL 23. I can see Rantanen's there as well. Same with Kucherov and Pastrnak. Now, next up here, guys, number 6, you got Andrei Svechnikov, 89 overall. I think that's a pretty fair rating for him. Maybe a tad high. Probably have him like an 88, but still one of the better, young players in the league. Again, I don't know what the skilled up X factor is for him. Literally the first player to score the Michigan in the NHL. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but like I said, I don't think the X factors are quite right, and I know for a fact the attributes are not. Nylander there, also 89 overall. I think well deserved for sure. Often gets overlooked with Matthews and Marner on the Leafs, but Nylander's a very good player in his own right. Great playmaker, also has a good shot. I think it's deserved. Patrick Kane, number 8, though, 89 overall. I don't think deserves to be in the top 10 of this list. I mean, he's still a free agent. He's the only guy here not signed on an NHL team. Obviously, he does have injury issues and stuff like that, but Patty Kane's not the player he used to be. He's still like a serviceable top 6 player, but he's not an elite player, which I think is what an 89 represents. To me, Kane would be somewhere between like an 86 and an 87. I think I said Ovi would be 88 to 89. I think I might even say 87. I think Ovi would be 88 to 89. Kane would be like 86 to 87. Some of these old superstars, I think, like have a legacy rating attached to them, and they don't want to, drop them too soon. But Kane's on a team right now. He didn't look amazing last year. Doesn't play any defense. He's slowed down. Not that physical. He should be like 87 max. Buchnevich there, 88, I think is pretty fair for him. Definitely became a much better player since joining the St. Louis Blues, so I don't mind that rating. Velsky there, 88 overall, still getting it done at his old age. Tough to argue. One of the best, I think, in the league, staying out front of the net, tipping pucks in. Also still has a pretty good two-way game. He plays wing, but he can also take face-offs, which he's pretty good at, so 88 for him is fine. And I keep forgetting, guys, but right here's the X factors for Nylander, Kane, Buchnevich, Pavelski. Number 11 here, Jordan Kyrou is also tied with them at 88. I can see, of course, he got the Wheels X factor there, I think. 88 is definitely deserved for him. One of the young stars on that Blues team, along with Buchnevich and Robert Thomas. Alex Tucker, number 12, 87 overall. Had a career year last season with the Buffalo Sabres. He's also got wheels. He's pretty fast. I think 87, definitely well deserved. Big upgrade for him, too. I think on the past, he was like 84 overall, but I showed last year he's a legitimate top 6 player, even low-end elite, which I think is kind of what 87 is like right on the edge of. Patrick Laine there, also 87. Of course, one of the best snipers in the league. Curious to see if he can kind of get back to, his old form in the first couple years of his career when he was on the Winnipeg Jets, but I think 87 for him is fair, especially if he has, low defensive attributes with a very good shot. Now, next year, number 14, we got Tyler Toffoli, also 87. I feel like that's a little bit high for Toffoli. I know he had a pretty good season last year, but for me, I feel like Toffoli is probably more like an 86, because you can have one good season. You don't have to go up quite to an 87. I look at kind of the rest of the players around him, and I feel like most of them are better, but you guys let me know in the comments section. Number 15 there, Troy Terry, 87. I think that's actually a very good rating for Terry. You guys see the X factors there. I think, on a bad Ducks team, him and Zegras kind of carrying the load. I'm going to be a homer here. I feel like DeBrincat should be higher than 87. I think he should be an 88. I mean, he scored 40 goals twice. He's fast. Obviously got a really good shot. He's got good hands, too. No physical, though, so I could see that kind of lowering his overall, similar to Johnny Gaudreau. But personally, when I look at the rest of these guys, I personally think DeBrincat's better than Terry, better than Toffoli. Laine in his prime, probably better, but right now I'd say DeBrincat, better than Tuck. So yeah, to me, like, he's kind of on par there with Kyrou, who's also an 88. Timo Meier at 17, also 87. So I think Meier's actually underrated as well. Looked very good last year with the Sharks, then surprisingly got worse on a better team with the Devils. So I think it just took him some time to get used to his new team. I feel like if you don't take that into consideration too much, Timo Meier's a very good player. Should be higher than 87. I think 88 makes more sense for him. Also, too, he's like a power forward. He's got pretty good physical game, great shot, decent hands. He kind of does it all for you. In which case, I think, the overall would make sense to get a little bit of a bump. Cole Coffield, 86. That one's tough. I feel like Coffield, again, similar to DeBrincat, similar to Gaudreau, they don't have that physical stat, so obviously the overall is going to drop. But when I look at a guy, say, like Tyler Toffoli, I think Coffield's better than Toffoli. Toffoli's 87. I said he should be an 86. At which point, Coffield should probably be an 87, because I have him, I think he's a better player than Toffoli, so I think he's probably slightly lower rated there. He's obviously a really good shooter, he's fast, good playmaker. I think he's a great offensive talent, so he made him an 87. I think that'd still be pretty fair. Tarasenko there at 1986. I think that's actually a really good rating for Tarasenko. He slowed down a bit, but still like a legitimate top 6 player. He's pretty much good for 30 goals almost every season. Probably 30 goals, 60 points or whatever. That's about an 86, especially a guy that's, starting to get a little older now. He's 31. Maybe even 87, I feel like wouldn't be out of the picture. Definitely 85 would be too low, but 86 might have been the perfect rating. And then Travis Konecny there at number 20, also 86. I think a fine rating as well. I think, Konecny is a pretty good player. He's got some feistiness to him. He can shoot, he can pass. I think, not really going to complain about that one either. There's your top 20 right wingers, guys. And one thing left I actually have to show you is the top 10 for slap shot and wrist shot power. So right here you can see the slap shots. Ovechkin number 1, 96. I mean, on this one tease, it's hard to argue against that. Stammer as well. You guys see the rest. They got Hamilton, Laine, Karlsson, Petey, Draisaitl, Thompson, Matthews, and Burns. I feel like this list, isn't too bad. Now looking at the top 10 wrist shot power players, Ovechkin again leads the way, followed by Draisaitl, Matthews, Laine, Thompson, Hamilton, Robertson, Karlsson, Pastrnak, Burns. So a lot of familiar faces there. I think Matthews could probably be number 2 above Draisaitl. I also think Connor Bedard will eventually be on this list. But in regards to the slap shot power, guys, one issue I have is the fact that they actually track how hard players' shots are. And for last season, Radko Gudas had the hardest shot recorded. He actually had the 2 hardest shots recorded, and he's nowhere in this list. I'm guessing it's because he's a lower rated player, but like, what's the point of stats at all if a guy has to be at least an 85 to be top 10 in any individual stat, aside from maybe like fighting or whatever? Doesn't make sense. Gudis needed to be on that list. Thompson, of course, was. Pollock as well needed to be on that list. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, leave that thumbs up. If you don't want to miss tomorrow's ratings video, which I'm guessing will be like the top 20 defensemen, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.